etc. And according to Western systems now, they're secular, which means that religion has no place to play in the application of law. So, with this kind of an attitude, where, we are evolved beings, our great-grandparents were monkeys, well, the monkeys don't have any problems in fornication. We don't even see issues of adultery, because they don't get married. So, why should we be making all of this? I mean, it's something which we have introduced. We're really only animals anyway, so no big deal. So the idea now of punishing somebody for this is something abhorrent in many Western systems. I'm not saying that every single individual in the West holds these views. In fact, there are many people in the West who are very much saddened, sickened by the changes in the moralities of the society. But I'm just talking about the system and as it is portrayed through the media and through the international political systems, whether it is through the UN or whatever. These attitudes are being promoted, especially promoted in the Muslim world, where there is a resistance to this kind of thinking and this kind of approach to life. However, when we go back to the actual application of this law within the Muslim system, we have to recognize that this application is not just across the board. Somebody accuses somebody of fornication or adultery, and all of a sudden the law is being applied. No. Islamic law requires that there be 4 witnesses for the application of this law, whether it's lashing, because it's fornication, people who are not married, or it's stoning to death in the case of adultery, where people are having illicit sex who are married. These laws are not applied unless there are 4 witnesses, 4 people who have seen them in the act, and 4 reliable witnesses, not just anybody you pull out of the woodwork, you can pay them some money, but people who are known to be just and righteous people in the society. They're not known to be corrupt and these type of things. So, without those 4 witnesses, the law cannot be applied. And because of that, the number of cases of people stoned to death and, lashed for adultery, very few. Over the last 1,400 years of application of Islamic law, from the time of the Prophet, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, until today, very, very few cases. They can be counted, within the 10s and the 20s. Why? Because the evidence for it is very difficult to establish. Now, what is the evidence? The evidence has to be a confession. People confess. They're caught and they confess. Or a woman gives birth to a baby. She becomes pregnant. Her husband is away. He's out of the country. He's been out of the country for the last 9 months, and she's delivering a baby. These are the signs. So where there's clear evidence, then the law will be applied. But accusation is not sufficient. The woman, for example, who, she is caught, she's pregnant, she points the finger and says, he did it. They're not going to, they'll question him, did you do it? If he said no, they cannot apply the law. Why? Because she could be pointing at somebody she doesn't like. Maybe it's not that person at all. But, the person who was involved, who she loves, she wants to save him, but there's somebody she'd like to get back, and so she says, he did it. And in fact, he didn't. So, these kind of accusations, not acceptable. In fact, from Islamic law perspective, if you accuse somebody and you don't have these witnesses, then you are lashed 80 lashes publicly. So it's considered very serious. Sexual slander, to slander somebody saying that they've committed adultery or they committed fornication, is very, very serious. If you don't have the evidence, then according to Islamic law, you have to be silent. Now, in a case where a husband or a wife catch each other in the act, they don't have the evidence, then they can raise their case before the court, and their marriage can be dissolved on the basis of it. Right? But the law will not be applied of punishment to either party unless the evidence is there, unless there's a confession, there's a pregnancy, or witnesses. So basically, the law is a deterrent. As we said, it's rarely applied, but it's a deterrent, something to discourage people. And As a result of that, you find that the rate is quite low in Muslim countries in general. I mean, when we go back and we look at public displays of affection, which have become a norm in Western societies, where people hold hands, they kiss and hug each other publicly in the society, and I mean, you go to a park, etc. in the West, I mean, you don't know what you could find happening there. You go there with your family, sometimes it's very embarrassing, because this has become a norm. People don't feel anything wrong with it, shaking the hands of your guests, female guests, his man comes with his wife, shaking her hand, even kissing the wife of somebody else. I mean, it's considered part of normal social, etiquette in the West. Whereas from an Islamic perspective, this is discouraged. It's discouraged, strongly discouraged. Why? Because these kinds of interactions can lead to corruption, and we have people, especially people getting together, in states where they're involving using alcohol, things like this. It's very easy for the limits to be broken. There's a case a few months back, of a couple, a man and a woman. They met each other. They're flying from New York to London. They didn't know each other. They happened to be sitting next to each other in business class. They have a few drinks. Next thing you know, they're involved in these activities, cover themselves with a blanket. People around them are saying, stop, the stewardesses are coming, stop, don't do this. So they went on through it. Of course, when they arrived, they were arrested. But something like this, public, sexual intercourse in public, in front of people like this, I mean, this happens. I mean, this, because of this relaxation, this moral decadence which has spread, where these kind of practices, though maybe objected to in this instance, but people are going to movies and watching this. I mean, this is the movies are promoting this. This is, fornication, adultery is the norm for moviegoers today. So if people are constantly bombarded with this as being a norm, the movie stars are doing it, and they're portraying people from all walks of life. Common people, normal people. But everybody seems to be involved in one way or another in fornication or adultery. And this is what the movies are telling us. Then, naturally, people will be encouraged in their personal lives to be involved in such practices and activities. So, Islam looks at the family structure as being very important. As in the case of theft and the cutting off the hands of the thief, security of the society is looked at as very important. In fact, the thief who is involved in armed robbery, according to Islamic law, that person can be executed. When you take out weapons against the society, there's a danger. You're creating a major security threat. In those circumstances, such people may be executed. Rape. Weapons are taken out and people are forced. It's death. This is to keep this kind of harm from the society and maintain a level of security. Similarly, for the sake of the family, protection of the family. Family is the core of the society. Once that breaks down, you're finished. So in order to protect that family, the laws are very strong. Islam encourages, marriage early. It permits polygamy. All of the things that are there. Divorce is not inaccessible. So where people have problems, etc., these things can be worked out. There are other options for them. So beyond that now, any kind of illicit sex from Islamic perspective is considered a grave crime. And as such, the punishment is very, very grave. And I should mention, as we close, that the punishment for adultery is not something which Islam introduced, meaning the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ introduced it. This is found in Mosaic law also. It's been around. It's not something newly introduced. Islam revived it, brought it back to the forefront, and established it and has kept it alive until today, where in other societies it has been lost. The idea is now considered outmoded. With that, dear viewers, I'd like to thank you for being with us in this segment of our program, Contemporary Issues. I hope that some light has been shed on these issues for you, that you can better understand the Islamic stance in regards to these issues, and how they are relevant today, and how society still will benefit from it and will continue to benefit from it until the last day. With that, dear viewers, I'd like to bid you farewell. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.